Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to Inner Work for Greater Good. I hope that you've been well this past week since I last spoke to you. And of course, I can speak with you as well. You can always reach out to me anytime. But I really hope that what I share with you on this channel is really helpful in helping you feel stronger and clearer and gain some wisdom and do some reflection on the kind of inner work that's necessary to really have a bigger impact and to feel better and to show up more fully in your life. Um, Today's topic is what's wrong with wanting a certain outcome, right? What's wrong with that? I will cut to the chase actually and say there's nothing wrong with wanting a certain outcome in your life, whether it has to do with relationships or your job or your visions, your dreams, or your body or yourself. There's nothing wrong with wanting a certain outcome. But as always, I've been reflecting on this from this past week just because of some things that have kind of occurred in my life. And I really made me consider about this whole idea of being attached to outcomes. Now, some of you who understand or have studied Buddhism that's something big, at least in Buddhism, right? Is, not being attached to an outcome. And other, I guess, maybe other spiritual practices, this is a similar thing too. Is, the lesson of non-attachment. And sometimes that shows up when people talk about being not attached to things. I think that's also a very Buddhist concept. Now, I do practice Buddhism, but I'm not an expert on Buddhism. And I know that sometimes we try to do that anyway, when we realize that when we're too attached to something, and then it doesn't happen that way, that can cause pain. Or even just that it feels a lot more free to not be so attached. And that's actually ultimately the essence that I want to get to here. And what I want to get to is not so much about attachment to things, but really about attachment to outcomes, like I mentioned. And the reason why this came up for me is because I had a part of me that showed up, and it was a little girl, and she was in so much pain. It was like all this grief. And she's been there for a while, but I kind of hadn't, tried to deal with her in my own way, but as usual, I needed help. And so of course I talked to my husband. It's almost like it's sort of like I'm training my husband in my work just by him helping me with my stuff. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. I've actually floated that with him, maybe teaching him the drawing out process. I've never actually taught anybody my work before, but he's quite good at it. And so it's probably because of years of having gone through it with me and listening to my podcast and all that kind of stuff, and actually being there when I first started developing it. But the point is that I had this incredible grief. And so last night, he really helped me in allowing that part of me to speak. It was in just such despair and grief. And she was just in so much pain because she's seen me try so hard over the years to achieve certain things. And also from this belief of like, by this age, at this time, I feel like I should have already achieved these things, or I should have already become this person, or this project, that I really had such hopes in has just fallen flat, or it failed, or whatever. And I've had a lot of that in my work, in my life. And it's been heartbreaking. Honestly, it is heartbreaking. It makes me so sad and upset. And at the same time, it's kind of creates this interesting conflict or struggle within me, because I do have these other parts of me that are just like, yes, and believe, and, feeling optimistic. And yet the reality is this part that's just in so much pain, because it's like, yeah, but it's not happening yet. And so it occurred to me just this morning, like, what if I were to just let go of attachment to the outcome? To outcomes in my life. And ultimately, it comes down to something very practical. And that is that having attachments, for me, to certain outcomes creates pain. Okay. Now, let me break this down a bit. It can be the attachment to an outcome related to fear of there being a certain outcome, desires for a certain outcome, and then not having those desires realized, and then I fall into disappointment and despair, or at least parts of me do. It can be what did I write down? It was like fear of, desires for, expectations of a certain outcome. Really think that, oh, good, this is going to be the thing that really helps propel me or my work. In my case, that's what it's about. For you, it might be about relationships. For someone else, it might be about their health. It could be all kinds of things. But really, that no matter sort of how it plays out, whether it has to do with fear of, or expectation of, or desires for, whatever, there's disappointment, I think, inherent in all of that, or even the fear of disappointment, because things may not always turn out the way we want them to, or things may actually be turning out the way we ultimately want them to turn out. They may be actually leading us towards our heart's desire, but we don't see it yet. What we see is failure, sadness, disappointment, frustration. We see that our fears are being realized. We see our dreams being dashed. We see our hopes falling apart. We see that things aren't happening the way we want them to happen. And what's coming to mind right now is that metaphor, that story where they say that, it's like you have the guy on the raft in the middle of the ocean, and he's like, someone rescue me, please, someone come help me. And he has this idea of what that looks like. And then meanwhile, things actually happen to help him. Maybe there's a ship passing, and it offers to pick him up. And he's like, no, I'm good. God's going to help me. Oh, maybe he thinks that the helping will be just, I don't know, something magical or different. But the point is, the story of, or the metaphor of, allegory, whatever the word is, of God, of saying, well, God's going to do this for me. And like, basically all these things come along to help the person. And the guy's like, no, and says no to all of them. And then finally the guy's like dying, and he's like, God, why didn't you help me? And God's like, well, I did. I actually brought you all of these things, but you didn't recognize them as forms of help. And so that's just a sort of a side story to say that sometimes we can experience sadness, fear, disappointment, because what's happening, we might see it as a disappointment. We might see it as an outcome we don't want, but actually it is a blessing in disguise. It is actually guiding us in the right direction. Another story can be, when a door closes, a window opens. But what if we don't see the window opening? We're just looking at the door closing. In other words, that we can be so attached to a certain outcome that we don't see the blessings. We can be so focused on wanting a particular, like, this is what I'm going for, that when that exact thing doesn't happen, we can experience despair. We can feel like failures, et cetera, et cetera. And so I've really been sitting with this of like, what if, and I've got big dreams. I don't know about you, but I've got big dreams, big visions, big hopes, big desires for what I want in my life. And yet at the same time, sort of sometimes having that, it has caused me stress and fear and sadness when I feel like things aren't actually lining up the way I want them to. And when I feel, and then it sort of reinforces the sense of failure that I carry, that I have because of all the previous disappointments. And so it just occurred to me this morning, and see how this is for you, with something that you might be dealing with in your own life. What if I were just to let go of attachment to outcomes? What if I were to let go of fear of, desire for, expectation of, just what if instead I were to focus on two things? Doing the best I can, and underline this, trusting in whatever results from that. So that's the first thing. So I'm just going to put that out to you, and you could write this down. Do the best you can and trust in whatever results from that. So let me just do that one. There's two of them I want to share with you. But it's like, this is the first one. What if I'm just doing the best I can? And I believe that we actually all are. Brene Brown does a nice sort of short talk about this, in which she was feeling frustrated with certain people in her life and how, like, why don't they do better? And she asked her husband, do you think that people are really doing the best that they can? And her husband said, yeah, I really do. Now, could they do better? Maybe. Should they do better? Sure. But what's the reality? They're doing what they're doing. They're showing up however they're showing up. And maybe that's the best that they can do right now. And how she noticed that how her husband felt such peace in that. Like, he was so much more peaceful about other people when he was just like, they're doing the best they can. And that doesn't mean that we can't offer suggestions, or we can't, be supportive or whatever, or set boundaries, whatever we need to do with that person. But just to understand that, that person is doing the best that they can. So what if we apply that grace to ourselves, and rather than attaching to certain outcomes in our lives, or at least like possibly creating pain for ourselves, I mean, like, I have to achieve this thing or else. What if I just do the best that I can and trust in whatever results from that? Now, two examples come to mind. One is sort of the bigger example of like, an athlete who really pushes towards getting the gold, right? And they spend 4 years working so hard and like, I'm going to win that gold medal. I'm going to win that gold medal. And it can be that thing that keeps them working towards something. But what if they also recognize that I would like to win the gold medal, but at the same time, I'm going to focus on, I'm going to do the very best that I can and trust in whatever results from that. Because what if the very best that you can do is not quite as good as the person who wins the gold? What if you win the silver or the bronze? What if you place 10th, whatever? But that person's very best was better than yours. Okay, the reality is that was the reality. And so what if the mindset where I'm going to strive for the gold, but I'm also going to just do the very best I can and trust in whatever results from that. You hear the difference, like there's so much more peace in that, I believe. And I'm all about being at peace with ourselves, because I believe that the more at peace we are with ourselves, the more we can shine our light and be at peace in the world. And then the more we create a peaceful world. But like, imagine having that mentality. I'm just going to do the best that I can and trust in whatever results in that. Another way to put that is, let the chips fall where they may. That's another way to do it. Falling sounds a little bit kind of sad, but it's a metaphor. It's a good metaphor. Just, all right, I'm going to do the best I can. And I'm going to trust in whatever results from that. Because it could be that there's some life lessons from not getting the gold that time. It could be that it really isn't about the outcome to which you're attached. It's really more about the growth and the athleticism or the learning or the connections, the human connection that you make through that process of training and doing your very best and feeling good about yourself, knowing that you're doing your very best. See, another thought that comes to mind is, for me, I've been having some really difficult conversations lately. And it's been really hard because I've had to speak some truths that have been actually screaming at me for a while. And then I finally have had clarity. And then I've had to, because it feels right for me, I've had to express my truth and say, here's the deal. And the thing is, it's very easy when we have to make difficult choices like that or have difficult conversations to want to try to control the other person's reaction, to want to kind of control the outcome. Well, if I say it this way, then maybe they'll, and I've let go of that. I just go, no, I cannot control how that person's going to respond. I can't control what they choose as a result of whatever I say to them. I can't control how they choose to treat me going forward. I can't control any of that. I just know that this is what I need to do, and this is the best thing that I can do, and I will do it the best way that I know how. And let the chips fall where they may, and trust in whatever results from that. That leads to my second thing is, do what you feel, or rather what you know. Do what you know is right for you. And same ending, trust in whatever results from that. Do what you know is right for you and trust in whatever results from that. Again, for the same reason, because there's peace in it, because there's inner peace in knowing that you're doing what you know is right for you. And just trust that, you know what, however those people react is however they react. However things go from there is however they go from there. But you know, because it's the only thing you can control, that you're doing what's right for you. And just, trust that other people, whatever their feelings or reactions, that's their job to take care of those. I've talked a lot about that we really can't control how other people respond to us or what other people do in reaction to what we do or what we say or what we choose. And so that's where there's that piece of non-attachment to outcomes, of just, I know that I'm doing what I know is right for me. And I'm just going to trust in whatever results from that, whether that's, certain path that I take, or certain success that you might achieve, or certain ways that you feel, or whatever, trust in whatever results from doing what you know is right for you. Okay. So those are the two things that I want you to think about. And there's another little thing I want to throw in there that can be a little bit of a bug. And I noticed this in myself too. So the two things are, do the best you can and trust in whatever results in that. Do what you know is right for you and trust in whatever results from that. So I want you to take those two, if you feel called to some situation in your life, or you might notice that you're really attached to outcomes, or you really want a certain result, or you're trying to, I would say one sign is if you're trying too hard to control things you can't control. So just do the best you can and do what you know is right for you, and trust in whatever results from that, because there may be repercussions that you're not aware of that are actually really positive and ultimately empowering for you or for other people that you don't even realize is happening. So just trust in whatever results from that, whatever the ripple effect is of that. The two things I want to point out, actually. One is, notice when you even say that to yourself, like, I'm just going to do the best I can and trust in whatever result from that. You may notice parts of you that get a little, I don't know, they might have some trouble with that, because they may be parts that are attached to certain outcomes because of certain fears, because of certain expectations, because of fears of what would happen to them if it didn't work out, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the parts that I would say, do the drawing out process, which you can learn on changelight.world. Join the free community, completely free, no selling to you or anything, but just take the course, the intro course, in which I teach you how to draw out those parts, draw them out, get them out of you, get them on the paper so that you can be aware, start to really tune into like what's really going on with these parts. What is it that they're afraid would happen if you were to actually let go of attachment to that outcome? What is it that they so desperately desire, and why? Why do they want that outcome? Maybe, and usually it's because of some kind of fear of something happening or fear of something not happening. So just something to be aware of. The final thing, the one that I said was sort of the bug that I want to share with you, is this, because this is a little bit of a trick that can happen. And I noticed this happening right before I started the call, this show episode, is also, in addition to letting go of attachment to outcomes, let go of what you think will result from letting go. All right. And the reason why this is important, let go of your attachment to whatever outcome you want from letting go. And the reason why I'm aware of this is because I noticed that part of me was like, well, yeah, if I just let go, then things are going to start happening for me. And it's just going to be magic and it's just going to be great. So yeah, I'm going to let go. But notice how even in that thought of letting go, inherent in that is an expectation of an outcome or a desire for an outcome. If I do this, then I'll get this result. Yeah, if I let go of expectation of a result, I'm going to get a certain result. Well, that's not really letting go. So just be aware, that's a little trick of the mind that can happen that can get us trying to do that. And then it just sets us up for more disappointment. So rather than those things, focus on just do the best you can. That's the best you can do. Just do the best you can, and know and value and cherish and celebrate and honor the fact that you are doing the best you can with what you know right now. Could you do better? Maybe at some point. But if you're not doing better, it's because maybe you're not ready to, or whatever. But right now, we are all doing the best we can with what we know. And so are these parts of us inside. They're all doing the best that they can with what they know. So just honor the fact that you're doing the best you can with what you know, and focus on that. Just be like, I'm just going to do the very best that I can with what I know. And you know this now, trust in whatever results from that. Just trust. Just go, okay, if you're doing the best that you can, what makes you think that you could do better? If you already are doing the best that you can, what makes you think you could actually do better and then actually get a different result? So just do the best you can and trust in whatever happens from that. And do what you know is right for you. Do what you know is right for you. Because if you're doing what's right for you, you're actually doing what's right for everyone. Because what is right for you is what's most peaceful and empowering for you. And in that case, then you're going to show up better. You may end up inspiring other people to do the same, to honor themselves and what's right for them. But you can't control that. So just do what you know is right for you and trust in whatever results from that. All right. As always, I hope this is helpful. I love you. You're amazing. Thank you so much for listening and for watching. Please do connect with me if you have any questions or thoughts or feelings. Emily at changelight.world. And please do join our our community, our course, take the free course. And if you want to hear people actually going through my work and getting massive results in just a few hours, like permanent healing of inner critics, inner wounded children, things like that, like amazing stuff, listen to my podcast, darklighttruth.com. Okay. And you can find it on all the major apps. It's called Dark Light Truth. All right. I love you. I will see you next week. Take care in the meantime.